The action follows an investigation that found Missouri vegetable farm often failed to compensate workers at time and a half the adverse effect wage rate for the specific agricultural task being performed.
Much like last week in Southern Labor, we like to take a look at what bosses were up to in the last week, because not enough attention gets paid to when bosses break the law. They can steal from you, they can sexually harass you, they can be responsible for your death, and all that they will face is a small fine. But we wanted to, at the least, inform you of the consequences that they do face when these investigations are held and when they come to a conclusion. So, with that, let's get into Boss Watch and see what bosses were up to from March the 8th to the 15th. In Missouri, a Park Hills vegetable farming and packing operation will pay about $480,000 in back wages to 200 workers, following an investigation by the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division. Stealing $500,000 from 200 people. That's the kind of stuff, right, that if it were you or I doing that, I go into a rich person's house and I steal $500,000 in jewelry, I go under the jail, right? But, if you're a boss and you steal from 200 working people, just pay it back. Just pay it back. Take your time. You can do installments. Just pay it back. Not a big deal. In a consent order and judgment entered in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Missouri on March the 12th, and an H-2A settlement agreement executed on December 29th, 2023, Missouri Vegetable Farm, LLC, and its owners, Benji Proffer and Robert Proffer, will pay back wages of almost $400,000 to 100 H-2A temporary visa workers and 105 U.S. workers, as well as H-2A back wages of $85,000 to 22 corresponding U.S. workers. The company was also assessed civil money penalties of $38,000 for its H-2A violations. The action follows an investigation by the department's Wage and Hour Division that found Missouri Vegetable Farm often failed to compensate workers at time and a half the adverse effect wage rate for the specific agricultural task being performed when they worked over 40 hours in a work week. The company also failed to combine hours employees worked in both farming and packaging operations and to pay the required wage rate. The investigation reviewed pay records from May the 1st, 2021 through December the 15th, 2021. Wow. This is just for 6 months of activity. That is bizarre. That's crazy talk. The H-2A Temporary Agricultural Program allows agricultural employers to bring non-immigrant farm workers to the United States to perform agricultural labor or services of a temporary or seasonal nature. Employers must understand the wage requirements for the workers they employ. When seeking approval to hire temporary visa workers, employers agree to specific terms for pay rates, job tasks, and other compensation, and must also pay non-visa employees at least the same rate, said Wage and Hour Division District Director Noah Lee in St. Louis. The wages recovered for these workers will have a significant impact on their lives. Many of them may not have understood their rights to overtime pay, which is obvious, right? You have an immigrant worker, they don't know the labor laws in, a lot of native workers don't understand the labor laws in this country, much less immigrant workers. And so it's all the more important that we have government agencies like the Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division to enforce the law. In Georgia, the U.S. Department of Labor has cited an Atlanta chemical manufacturer with a staggering 67 violations and a proposed penalty of almost $300,000 for exposing workers to a series of workplace dangers associated with chemicals and struck by hazards. The department's Occupational and Safety and Health Administration cited Southern Industrial Chemicals, operating as SIC Technologies, after conducting a safety and health inspection. Across both, OSHA found violations for failing to provide feasible engineering controls to reduce employee exposures to hexavalent chromium, establish and implement a respiratory protection program, and provide a medical evaluation before workers were fit tested or required to use respirators. They failed to develop and implement a comprehensive hazard communication program for handling and use of hazardous chemicals, and a lot more. There's like a dozen more of these violations. Quote, Southern Industrial Chemicals failed to make employee safety and health a priority. Chemical exposures can lead to incurable and life-altering conditions, so it's vital that employers take immediate steps to recognize and mitigate life-threatening hazards like those found in this investigation, said OSHA Atlanta West Area Office Director Jeffrey Stowowie. Employers must evaluate and effectively control respiratory hazards in the workplace and establish communication programs that meet or exceed federal safety standards to protect workers. Our hazard communication overview provides employers with the knowledge to get this done and make their workplaces safer for all. Workers in the U.S. suffered more than 190,000 illnesses and approximately 50,000 deaths annually related to chemical exposures. OSHA's website provides an overview of chemical hazards and toxic substances to provide employers and employees with tips to recognize hazards and control exposures. In South Carolina, Walmart will pay $70,000 and furnish other relief to settle a disability discrimination lawsuit filed by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The EEOC charged that Walmart violated the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, when it revoked permission from an employee with a disability to use a store electric cart as a reasonable accommodation for a disability, forcing him to take unpaid leave. According to the EEOC's lawsuit, shortly after hiring Luis Quinones, who uses a prosthetic leg, Walmart accommodated Quinones by permitting him to use one of the store's electric carts to perform some of his job duties. Approximately 7 months later, Walmart told Quinones he was no longer able to use the cart, claiming that the store's electric carts were for customers only, even though other employees were permitted to use the carts to accommodate temporary injuries. The suit alleged that Walmart failed to offer an alternative, reasonable accommodation that would have allowed Quinones to continue working, and instead Walmart placed him on indefinite unpaid leave. Such alleged conduct violated Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, which protects individuals with disabilities from workplace discrimination and requires that employers provide reasonable workplace accommodations. In addition to paying monetary damages, Walmart also agreed to offer Quinones a job at one of its South Carolina locations. The 2-year consent decree settling the suit enjoins the company from failing to provide reasonable accommodations to individuals with disabilities relating to walking and standing at store number 0514 in Aiken. The decree also, with limited exceptions, enjoins Walmart from eliminating existing reasonable accommodations for such individuals without identifying an alternative that allows the employee to remain in their position, except in certain circumstances. Walmart will be required to conduct an annual training for salaried employees at the affected store, post an employee notice, and submit periodic compliance reports to the EEOC. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.